Nu likely created sacred divine spirituality from the dawn of creation, but Igbo spirituality has existed for about 250,000 years in Nigeria and among many other tribes in West and East Africa to the General Sahara. The Igbo Odinani spirituality is still alive and being practiced today in Africa as well as elsewhere in the world. The central Igbo spiritual practices, very similar to Kushites, Kemites, are ancestor worship, righteous living for a good life, to ripe old age, the afterlife, and veneration of the dead in the afterlife. Igbo Odinani spirituality, those with long life and died at ripe old age, are venerated in the afterlife and influence the living. Not surprising at all. Kushites, Kemites, spirituality likely arose from Igbo spirituality ancestors thousands of years ago, as well as from the spirituality of many other tribes in West and East Africa. Also, not surprising, the more 7,000-year-old Nubian Kustal incense burner references divine spirituality and divine kingship, or pharaohship, of the later Kushites, Kemites. Igbo Nsibidi, writing between 3000 BC and 6000 BC, also have very close similarities to the Meduniter, or hieroglyphs, writing by their use of pictographic and ideographic symbols. And both the immediate ancestors of Igbo and the Kushite Kemites treated their writings as inspired by God and called the writings God's languages. Nu, the African supreme God, created nature and the universe, along with the Milky Way galaxy where we now live. Our African and Kushite Kemites ancestors wrote this in their sacred books of sacred divine spirituality called the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, the Paramheru, or the Book of the Dead, and also in innumerable papyri. Nu then gave birth to sacred divine spirituality with spiritual forces of life in all things. We call this force energy in our study of physics. Then Nu inspired our ancestors to name gods and dynasties and triads of gods from deceased immortal ancestors now residing in the afterlife. These gods and goddesses are rewarded for their greatness in advancing sacred divine spirituality. Ma, Atlaws for humanity's immortality. Among hundreds of gods are Atum, Re or Ra, Amun-Ra. Nu allows these eternal gods to help pave the way for the living to enter the divine world of immortality if they lived balanced lives with the Ma'at laws of human life. Nu's spirituality is the super powerful, everlasting force of life that lives in all things, in nature and the universe, that will live on for eternity in the divine world of Nu. Divine wisdom comes from understanding and living in harmonic balance with this sacred, divine spiritual force, using Ma'at commandments as guide for those who desire to achieve longevity in our world and immortality in the divine world. Nu's divine spiritual realm is inconsistent with the unstable acts of the desecrated. Nu's sacred laws require harmonic balance with the spiritual force for a healthy spiritual life. The spiritual force permeates all things. Thus, our ancestors discovered and invented laws like the sacred ratio. One of the mathematical formulas for this required harmonic spiritual balance for longevity and immortality. They used sacred ratio mathematics in their kingdoms at least 75,000 years ago at Adam's calendar in southern Africa, and also invented a mathematical numbering system in Congo around 30,000 BC. The first numbering system in mathematics that appears in human life was found in Congo, written on the Ishango bone. About 20,000 years later in Taseti, Africa, in the area of Nubia, our ancestors who later became the Anu, then Kushite Kemites, used a numbering system wherein 1 unit, that is little less than an inch today, that they call the royal finger. This 1 unit is renamed 1 centimeter, cm, today. And 10 units that they called 1 royal hand. This 10 units is renamed 1 decimeter, dm, today. And 100 units that they called 1 royal leg. This 100 units is also renamed 1 meter m today. From the royal leg, the Anu Kushite Kemite ancestors derived the royal cubit. These mathematics enabled our ancestors to build the sacred pyramids and temples, as well as other sacred edifices like the obelisks and other engineering feats in chemistry, like smelting trachyandesite and other stones that are harder than steel. All these inventions honored Nu's sacred divine spirituality in building temples and spiritual monuments like funerary. Our ancestors' mission was to spread all this spiritual knowledge to the world. Why did our ancestors call their discoveries and inventions sacred? If you make the diameter d of any circle or sphere 100 units, the d is 3.14 times the circumference of the circle. They called this the area of a circle or circular space. 3.14 is renamed pi today. Pi and all the mathematical formulas here are used to build the pyramids of Kemite, renamed Giza today. See the Rhine Papyrus, written about 1900 BC, the Berlin Papyrus, written about 1600 BC, the Moscow Papyrus, written about 1900 BC, and other papyri. 52.36 is 6 times the circumference of the above circle or sphere of d100 units. 52.36 multiplied by 6 equals 314, or reduced to a decimal of 3.14. Place any circle inside a cube, and the volume of the circle is 52.36%. The 52.36 formula also allows our ancestors to connect 2D and 3D space. Again, because these formulas are sacred, they will live on for 1 million years and beyond. Changing the names does not change the formulas or measurements in nature and the universe. These formulas can be applied to circles of any size, even as large as any planets or stars anywhere in the universe. Our ancestors used these mathematical formulas to consecrate sacred divine spirituality in their kingdoms. Our ancestors thus deemed 52.36 sacred and called it the royal cubit, equals 5 royal hands and 36 units. The royal cubit can be used anywhere in nature and the universe like the other formulas. This numbering system and the formulas above live in nature and came from nature as inspired by Nu, enabling them to understand sacred divine spirituality to achieve divine wisdom. The sacred ratio is renamed the golden ratio today. Ancestors used it for harmonic balance in sacred divine spirituality, architecture, beauty, and all things in their lives. Sacred ratio will also continue for eternity. 42 Ma'at laws are sacred for harmonic balance in our spiritual life and divine wisdom. Tesedi dynastic kings such as Usir and Heru and Queen Ist were deified gods by our ancestors for practicing Ma'at laws in sacred divine spirituality. Our ancestors deemed Ma'at sacred, and it will live on for all of human existence. The world fears those with divine wisdom, and so destroyed them, as the Kushite Kemites were destroyed by Assyrians, the Babylonians, Alexander the Great of the Greeks, the ancient Romans, the Arabs, slavery, and colonialism. Yet our ancestors' sacred divine spirituality and their cultural heritage live on in the pyramids and the coffins, in innumerable papyri, and most importantly, in DNA and genes. Divine wisdom in astronomy, mathematics, chemistry, architecture, engineering, etc., is a gift from Nu to Nus, first and chosen people in Tanetcher, or God's land, or Africa, say the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, the Paramheru, and innumerable other papyri. With the renaming of these creations and inventions, and the renaming of places and kingdoms where they happened, subsequent generations of the people forgot who they were and God's gifts to them. They even forgot and abandoned their sacred divine spirituality and their supreme God. Nu, we have no knowledge of who we are. We just don't remember who we were. Ishango bone with mathematics 30,000 years ago. Astronomy and sacred mathematics at Adam's calendar in South Africa over 75,000 years. Nabta Playa astronomy in Sudan over 8,000 to 12,000 years ago. That the Great Pyramids of Kher Nader, renamed Pyramids of Giza, the pyramids in Kush or Nubia, now Sudan, renowned education centers, Meroe, in ancient Egypt, pyramids at Meroe, the Rhind Papyrus, the Berlin Papyrus, the Luhan Papyrus, the Moscow Papyrus, all with a wide range of mathematics used by our ancestors in the spiritual service of Nu and sacred divine spirituality. The Bible in Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." We still forget who we are. Seek sacred divine spirituality for longevity in this life and immortality in the afterlife. Begin by knowing the sacred spiritual self, by start reading the ancestral sacred texts, the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, the Paramheru, and the papyri. Learn for yourself that there is only one supreme God and one sacred divine spirituality in the sacred ancestral texts, and that all the other gods are African ancestors who were so great, like Usir, Iset, and Heru. People deified them gods and assigned some stars in the Canis Major, Orion, and Ursa Major constellations. Thousands of years before the Kushite, Kemites,